Did we quit the same day? Was there an overlap? Because Janet, you were end of 2019, so you had a few months.
We were
lying on the bench.
We never even hit the bench. Okay. We literally were like, oh, let's go.
Our asses were just hanging up in the air, right? Walking over to the next job.
Wow. Can you ladies believe it has been about 3 years since we left our jobs full time and are doing this? Like ABG is now our job full time.
We're a junior in college.
Oh, we are. 3 years is long enough for us to have found our rhythm and fine-tuned it multiple times, and also short enough for us to still remember our previous corporate careers. Corporate careers are often seen as reliable, secure, stable, and that is the reason why many of our parents and also immigrant parents wish for us to have corporate careers.
For sure. Working 9 to 5 or more like 6 p.m. for a lot of us had its pain points, but also had really great perks. It's been a few years since that experience. So today I want to talk about, what worked for us, what did we bring into ABG, which is our current career, and what we're happy to leave behind.
Yeah. So I guess before we even start that, let's just give our audience and our listeners a little bit of context. I know we've talked about this many times already, what we've done for our corporate careers. So if you're an avid, frequent listener, you can probably skip over the next 2 to 3 minutes. But if you're new here, let's just give a brief overview of what we did and also maybe 3 words or 3 phrases to describe the job.
Ooh, that's actually kind of hard.
That is hard.
But I like it because it's going to help describe.
Challenge you,
it's going to challenge me. Okay. So I was a user experience designer or experience designer, depending on the job, in the technology industry before going full-time into ABG. 3 words, I guess, wireframes. Wireframes, human perspective, and usability are 3.
Did you say usability because it's user experience?
I kind of cheated. I used one of the words in the title.
That.
But yeah.
Okay. Human perspective. I like that too.
I'm waiting for your response.
Oh, me? Okay.
I need time to prep.
Okay. So I worked at one of the big 4 accounting firms doing finance, not accounting. I think a lot of people assume that finance is the same as accounting. But if you talk to anyone who worked in finance, they're like, no, it's completely different. So I worked in finance, worked in the transaction advisory department, transaction advisory services department, valuing private companies and equity securities. And I did that for about 10 years.
Whoa.
3 words I would use to describe it would be buttoned up and closed-toed. Because you couldn't wear open-toed shoes.
I know, I saw your shoes before.
Yeah, they were all closed-toed. And I never wear them now. Second word I would say is fast-paced, challenging, and lots of opportunities to learn. And then third word/phrase would be global, a very large company with a large global network.
Ooh, great summary.
You have really good responses. Crap. Okay, so my career history, I worked in digital media pretty much my whole career. I did production, art directing, and social media marketing for a fashion company and also a digital company. I would describe my career as, oh man, this is hard.
Open-toed.
I mean, I could, yeah. Well, the first one I would say is it's extremely creative. The second one I would say is pop culture. I think being in social media marketing, you just kind of have to know what's going on at all times. Third, I have to say I was always on. Always on. To post, to be aware, to be ready to go. Kind of just, that's just my job.
Good descriptors.
Wasn't it weird? Does that just drive you back 3 years and kind of hard to think about that time again?
Kind of. But actually, I don't know. I felt it was fun.
Yeah, well, let's dig a little deeper. Thinking back to 3 years ago when we were in those different jobs, what is something that you really miss about being in an office or the corporate perks, any aspect of your job back then?
I miss my work bestie. Shout out to Crystal. Apparently all of our work besties are named Crystal. I found that out from a previous episode. But I miss having forced lunches with someone and just really getting to know someone. And then if you are there long enough, you realize oh, I'm not tired of this person. I actually really enjoy this person. So a work bestie.
I miss having a printer.
Oh, yes. Ooh, I love touching hot paper on a cold day.
Oh.
Wow.
I'm always afraid to get a paper cut, but I think when I say printer, I don't think people realize like how convenient it is to like get everything printed there.
Yeah.
And like nowadays when you buy stuff, return stuff, like, oh, please print out a label. I was like, I'm sorry, but who has a printer at home nowadays?
Right. Yeah.
No one has a printer.
Yeah.
Yep.
Along those lines, you get really good like the quality like tape at offices.
Okay, I didn't think about that one.
Because when I had
Tape,
printer
okay.
as well, right? If you're gonna return something, you need the kind of tape that's gonna
that's
package and hold stuff together.
Oh.
And then along those lines, really nice scissors.
All right.
like
Well,
the
I like
office
the pens and I like the highlighters and the sticky notepads.
Ah,
Okay, we missed the stuff.
miss all the
office
free
supplies.
stuff.
Another thing I will say, speaking of like office like supplies and stuff, I miss having just like because we would have get delivery stuff and they'll pick up our delivery. So for me, when I would buy clothes online, I could just drop it off at work. Now I have to like
really? Okay,
yeah
yeah.
Now I have to like find like a USPS and like drive myself there versus
Yeah,
like
yeah.
it's so convenient just to drop it at work.
Oh, I don't think I ever dropped things off at work.
Oh, I loved it.
Yeah, yeah. That's definitely, I think, being in a large office environment where you have like a lot of the administrative part like
Oh, yeah.
already nailed down, you take a lot of that for granted once you start like working out of your apartment, and then you have to you're like, okay, I need to print something. You're like, wait, I don't have
Yeah,
a printer. Oh, I need to like ship this out. Wait, I don't have like
Yeah,
the proper
exactly.
tape and that
Yeah.
kind of a thing.
I mean, you have your front door
My front,
person
yeah,
to do that for you, which is nice. And I'm like, Jenna, can you print this for
I
us?
know.
Yeah.
Same.
Thank you to downtown apartments that tend to have those like services. But yeah, generally it is really different now,
Yeah.
right?
I think one of the bigger things is also obviously the benefits.
Yeah.
So get me started on the benefits.
Benefits. I mean, I feel like with the benefits, there's the obvious ones like the retirement plans and the healthcare and all of that.
The dental.
The dental.
Dude.
Yeah.
the
dental.
HSA funds
I
and that kind
know.
of thing that you can put money away to
Yep.
help pay for
Yeah.
health related stuff.
I'm not gonna lie though, when they had those meetings at work, I didn't understand half the things they were saying. At HSA, I was like, what?
Yeah. What do you think it stood for?
I don't know. I don't know.
I think it's healthcare savings account.
There
right?
I also remember there was an FSA and an HSA. And
the
Mel,
FS.
don't feel bad. I actually only in like the second to last job that I had started to like dig into that and figure that out. And then that's why I started doing like Invisalign or that kind of
Yeah,
a stuff.
yeah.
It was only because I was like, oh, I'm gonna put this money away, and then it's like
Yeah.
it's like extra to help. Yeah. But
The reason why I say dental is because like I think a lot of people in the creative space sometimes like it's hard to get like you have to get health care, but dental care isn't necessarily provided.
Yeah,
I asked one of my
separate.
friends, I was like, how do you get your teeth checked every year? He goes, I asked my dentist friend and I just open my mouth and he just looks really quick.
Oh.
so you're like just grabbing coffee and they're like, oh, here's your
Kinda. I mean,
formal
there's
I feel
checkup.
like you need to do things to your teeth though to like clean it.
I mean, you
Not
obviously
just look
do that,
at it.
but like it's just like saying like you don't get that luxury going to your dentist because you don't have one.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know? I'm just saying.
Everyone out there needs a good dentist friend
Yes.
Or a good dental plan.
or a good dental plan.
Something like that.
Yeah, but I feel like with that too, with the benefits, I remember when I first started working at the job, like I sat down at my desk and there was a folder of things that you had to look through, and basically everything was already set for you. Like when you're shopping around for jobs, the benefits that they provide is sort of standardized, right?
Yeah,
so when you
yeah.
show up, all of that is already set up for you. Your retirement plan, your 401k. Someone said check this box to max out your Roth. Make sure you max out your contributions because or not your contributions, but your company will match your contributions. So make sure you
Free
match it
money.
out. And at
nice.
my old company, it was at 6%. So I was like, all right, I'll do 6, maybe 7 if I feel like extra rich. I don't know, like some months. But all of that was already set up for you. So when I actually left my job 10 years, like from that date that when I first started, I had a pretty healthy retirement balance.
Yeah.
And I also had a pension fund. And I was like, what? Where'd that come from? You know?
Uh-huh.
And that was all set up like day one, which is something that I definitely took for granted.
Dang. I
Yeah.
still need to understand half of what you just said.
But you're doing that for yourself now. I think that's you know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's my jobs actually didn't. I don't think they set it up for me. But another thing I miss is having an office to go into. And I will say, when I worked at the fashion company, that was a really nice office. Like we had large windows. We had like really great, like just the facility was really great that I didn't mind going into work. Like having a space just for you to like hunker down and do work is just so nice.
Oh, I have another one.
Huh.
Actual designated meeting rooms. We
Oh,
because we
yeah.
always for ABG when we were working out of my small apartment in downtown, sometimes it would be like someone has to take a meeting, someone has to take another meeting, and we're like we can't. You're like hearing each other. Someone else is like in the bathroom, and there's like an echo. When you have an office space, it's like
It's
all this like
quiet in
free
there.
space.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, and you have all the tech like available and ready for you.
yeah.
Another thing I would say is like I think a good leader, right? Like with us,
Ah.
obviously we have a very flat structure,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
there's benefits and not so good
Drawbacks.
benefits of having a more hierarchical, structure. But I think having a good leader to setting an example of, being someone that you want to exemplify in the future, qualities that you also want to start to develop for yourself, right? We don't really get that here. Like, obviously, I look up to both of you a lot, but it's like someone who's had 10 years of experience and you can see their path and say, oh, I love that this person values family, really appreciates piano recitals and soccer practices. Like, I want to do that too and still be at the top of my game and figure out like how she got there so that I could get there too. But now I feel like we're just trying to figure it out. We're all trying to figure it out with my baby. We're like, how do we do this?
Oh my God, I totally forgot about that. Because I think one thing personally that I struggle with, I actually do miss having a manager. Yeah. Now that I'm like the manager, I'm just like, it just feels like, I don't know. I guess I liked relying on someone too that could like just it was nice and the learning from them too. Yeah. The other thing I will say, and for me the final thing I'll say that I miss about corporate is, I know you said you're the work besties. I kind of miss just being in an environment where it felt like when you go to college, you're like placed with a group of people you might not necessarily be friends with, but you just end up bonding. And I miss having that like community of people that I was just really close with, because outside of work, I'm like, I don't know if we'd be friends, but at work, I was like, oh, now we're just so close. So I miss having that.
Yeah.
I think the last thing or the biggest part that I miss, which is kind of comes with just working for yourself, I think, is being able to leave work at work. Even if I would like physically bring work home and I would maybe do some work before I go to bed, like I was able to disconnect from it in a different way. I think our work now is like very intertwined with our personal lives, and it's hard to kind of shut off mentally and emotionally from it. So that luxury to be able to like have an office space to like go to and then to like leave and then come home and like have the door be closed is definitely a little different.
Yeah.
That's true. I think the last thing for me is probably somewhat of the structure. Again, there's some drawbacks and some benefits of that. But I feel like with structure, as someone who kind of likes control, like you can kind of see where your path is going and not be confused if it's like, if you're not doing well, it's obvious, it's clear, it's documented why you might not be doing well and why you might need to take like an extra year or whatever. But more often than not, you can kind of expect when a promotion is going to happen and where you're going to be, in the next year or so. So the stability and the structure was something that, I guess we're not sure of here at ABG. I think another thing that I miss about corporate is just a large network. If you worked for a large company, being able to advocate for yourself and say, oh, I want to work in a different country. Because I was able to do that and then be able to work in India for 3 months and work in Spain for 3 months. I think that was my first time in Europe. And in those 3 months, I traveled to 25 different cities and got to really understand people. I think it really helped me to develop my sort of like global leadership identity. And the one thing that I really took away from that is this notion that we are more similar than we are different. That is one thing I took away. It's like, even though I couldn't communicate with some people in the office, like they still, in valuation world, they still respected this guy named Damodaran, who I think is a NYU professor, and he's like the godfather of valuation. Like they look up to him too. I'm like, whoa. The fact that, we are so similar, but also so different, it made me just feel this level of like compassion and I think, develop myself as a better leader too. So the global network is something that I would definitely take advantage of if you work at a large company.
What about things that you absolutely do not miss? Let's flip the script a little bit now. Something you're happy to have left behind.
I don't miss having to get ready for work every day.
Oh my God. Yes.
Like I remember when at every new job, I'd be like, wear makeup for the first day, try my best looking cute. Week 3, I don't care. I'm like, but it's still like putting on jeans and all that. Like I don't miss that at all.
I would say admin. Ugh. Did you have to do a lot of admin at your job?
Describe admin.
Yeah, what is...
Okay, this probably took up like 15% of our work time, just administrative paperwork. So, for example, we had to do this thing called work papers. So after every single project or after, you were done with the client, you had to basically archive the whole project in a physical form. And I feel like nowadays it might all be online, but when I was there, it was like one of those Iron Mountain boxes that you see on The Office. It's just like stacks of those Iron Mountain boxes, and you had to fill those up with every single piece of paper that supports we did Excel models. So every single assumption had to be supported physically. And there were like all the trees. Yes. Oh my gosh. That's why I was like, I miss the hot paper because I like touch a lot of hot paper. But like there were 10 folders. And so the first one would be like admin. The second was like scope of work, MSA, and then there were like assumptions and
I'm sorry, you guys.
kind of like the
it sounds
final model.
Sounds like you're working at like a law firm or something.
I feel like law
similar,
firms
kind of,
probably had to do the
the
same,
same.
but it was pretty insane because imagine you had to go through all your emails and print out every email that supported every single assumption, and there were thousands of assumptions within each of these models, but
Now we know why
they all
Helen
had
is
to
so
be printed
detailed.
out. Yeah. And also, if some of the folders, there's one folder called like other, and we're like, what the fuck goes in other?
Just
And if
anything you don't understand.
No, and like no one ever had something in there, but instead of just leaving that folder blank or empty, you had to print out a piece of paper that said this folder is intentionally left blank. I was like,
Wait, seriously?
And you couldn't even have like a stack of those. Like each of these papers had to have the project title on it and like other project details on it. And then you had to add that language on there and then slip that into the folder. So it was just a lot of administrative work, all the compliance, all the ethics classes and CPE classes you had to take. It was pretty on slime.
I think for admin, I think it depended. When I was working in-house at a company, there wasn't much of like
That's true.
administrative.
Yeah.
But then when I went back into like a consulting capacity, then I had, I hate logging expenses. And then like, what else was there? They like logging your hours too, like how many chargeable hours. That was, yeah. But I think it was interesting listening to, because I like started scrolling back in the different industries, how different the like the day-to-day work is.
Yeah, because you worked at Deloitte, so I'm sure you had work papers.
Yeah, I
there,
remember
too.
we had to do the same thing. We printed out everything. And then it was and then I just kind of like, I'm like now mentally switching back to working in user experience design and a good like maybe 7 years later. So I think technology's a little bit different, and like the trend in tech was like open office spaces. So, with like like a big 4 cubicles, because you want privacy. You're dealing with like client information.
Yes. Yeah.
And then I still remember everyone was like, "Oh, open office spaces. You want to, open collaboration.
Office of the future.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's inspire people to like be together." It's so impractical. You can't focus. Like you're like starting to get work done, and then someone comes behind you and is like, "Excuse me."
Yeah. Or remember, we used to have like our own little cubicles, right? And I was like, okay, no one bothered me. I could get work done. And then basically it was the same thing, but then the walls just came down so that you looked at the person across from you, and you're sitting literally across, and sure, you're angled a little bit, but like you turn your head a little bit of an angle and like you can look directly at them. So I also did not like Office of the
Open
Future.
office space.
I didn't mind the open office.
Oh,
It
different
depends on the industry,
personalities.
because I
Yeah,
think for
yeah.
me, I had to go to people and get answers from them. So just like, it's easier for me, like, hey, da-da-da-da-da.
Yeah, yeah.
And also for me, when I want privacy, I just go to the empty
Like a meeting room.
meeting room or empty table at the lunch area. So I'm just like, I made it work.
Yeah.
I'm sorry about the paperwork stuff. That sounds horrendous.
This is like
something out
therapy to
Thank
heal
you.
from
And
the
it's,
years
it is
of
so jarring for me, because I feel like we worked in completely different industries. I never had to do that.
Yeah.
I was like, I think I had to log my hours once for like a PR internship online, but never had to like log anything. If anything, it was my mileage, my expense sheets for shoots or things like that, but nothing to that.
To that level of detail or extremity.
I just can't believe you had to do that. I guess for me, what I don't miss besides getting ready, I wonder if you both feel this way, but I don't miss working on projects that I wasn't inspired by. Like sometimes I'm just like, everyone around me is like, oh my God, I'm so excited. We get to work with blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, okay. Or I have to pretend to be excited. And I just hated
that's
pretending to be like, oh, I'm so stoked for this. When in reality, I really wasn't, but I can't be like, oh, that sucks.
Yeah, actually, that's a really good point. I think when I was in like advertising, more creative industries, there is this expectation that you're going to be in like how you show your dedication to a project is through emotional like excitement.
Yeah.
So you have to like, that's what creates the culture and what creates everyone's ready to like, ideate for this and like start coming up with like concepts and stuff. And if you're just like, I don't really care about, I don't know, like a random thing, then it doesn't. Yeah.
Like that will show up in your annual
Review,
review, right? Which is something else that I don't miss at all.
Oh my gosh.
Yes. Again, I feel like that was also in my mind just a lot more administrative and sometimes also very subjective. And it wasn't the best. It's hard though with a large company. Like you kind of have to document everything, or else you forget, especially all the projects you work on. So I get it. It was just a hassle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another thing I do not miss was the travel that was involved sometimes.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
So like one of the jobs that I did for user experience design, they are a consultancy, but when I had interviewed, they said, we do mostly projects, in LA. We have a couple clients in SF, but you're going to be mostly in LA. Of course, with anyone who works in client serving industries knows that it's very unpredictable. The moment I started, my second week, I was up in San Francisco, like every week. And when you do that, I think when I was younger, I was so like, I want to travel for work.
Yeah.
As you get older, you realize traveling for work means that you lose your Sunday to fly into the town or into the city that you're going to be at. You're eating like cold dinners from the hotel, and during the evenings. You're like FaceTiming if you're in a relationship with your roommates or your parents or your family. When your friends go out to happy hour, you don't get that, So I think there's a little bit of having the control of your schedule. That part I don't miss. I like
That's
being
true.
able to be in my space and being in my city right now.
That's true. That's true. Another thing I don't miss, the I'm gonna get more serious. The microaggressions, the lack of diversity, the power dynamics, the politics.
Oh, I hate office politics.
The
It's like,
politics is like, it's just, no one teaches you this stuff in school, in college, and it's
Yeah.
something that you definitely have to go through. And I think one thing that I learned, which is hopefully not something to like scare people, is that when you do start working, I think it kind of is important, if you want to stay at the company for a long period of time, to align yourself with people who will be good advocates and supporters of you if you want to get that promotion, if you want to get like to the next stage of your career. It's because I think I kind of aligned myself with someone I just got along with a little bit easier, but then in a room he might not have had as a commanding of a presence as someone else did. So
Good point.
I think that could have been detrimental for my career, now that I think about it. But once you get to like management level, so much of it is about who you know, who's going to support you, who's going to advocate for you, who's going to look over the things that you might not have done so well and like emphasize the things you did do well on. So politics, definitely don't miss that. Do we have politics here at ABG?
No. The last thing I will
No.
no. The last thing I will say that it's that I don't miss, and this might be a little TMI, I don't miss office poops. I'm sorry. It was such a struggle for me because I am someone that is a little bit poop shy. And the thing is, there was 2 bathrooms I had to choose from. One that was completely private. Oh, the one bathroom that was like no one really goes to, but randomly someone would go there, but there's no music, so it's dead silent.
All my bathrooms are silent.
Oh no! And there's another one that's like high traffic, but they blast like radio music, and I was
Yeah.
like, what do I want to do? And I just never felt comfortable like just going.
Yeah.
And the toilet paper always sucked, and like all these
Oh
little
yeah.
things.
Oh, my
Offices
gosh, yeah.
usually they skimp on toilet paper. It's the kind that like dissolves when you touch your bum.
That's why you
It's
just gotta pull as hard as you can and then roll.
yeah,
No,
you
no,
gotta
no.
roll multiple times.
Yeah. So that's just something I personally don't miss at all.
Yeah. Did you ever look at people's sneakers to see like, oh, is that my
Oh, it's
coworker?
so awkward if you're in like a formal meeting, especially if it's like a manager or like a client, and then you go in the bathroom and you see their shoes and you're like,
Do you ever like lift up your foot? You're just like, no one look at my feet.
No, I didn't. I don't know why I didn't do that. But you know, one thing my friend told me to do, he's like, I know you're poop shy, Mel. He's like, what I do is I put on headphones, I blast the music, so music's going in my ear. But I was like, everyone can hear you go, though.
so
Oh,
you're
yeah.
blowing up the bathroom
I was like,
and you
okay.
don't know. So
Man, I don't know if that helps.
I think it helps with your own mental psyche.
yeah,
Okay,
helps
okay.
you get over it.
Yeah.
Oh, what else do I miss? Or no, what else do I not miss? I think along with Mel's like going back to the beginning of getting ready for work, also having to commute. There were years
yeah.
of my work life where I had to commute from like Orange County to LA.
Ugh.
LA traffic, is like not fun to drive in. So the fact that I don't have to spend like so much of my life in a car is amazing.
Yeah. Last thing I will share, that I never felt like I could be the first to leave the office. Didn't like that feeling. Even if I was done with my work, I was like, oh, it's only 4 p.m. I have to stay here till at least like 5 or 6, or at least until someone else leaves. And yeah, that wasn't a good feeling.
Today's episode is sponsored by PayPal Honey, the easy way to save when shopping on your iPhone or computer. I like to think I'm a pretty efficient person. One of my favorite feelings in the whole wide world is being able to check things off my to-do list. However, I will say my list has been getting pretty long, especially my shopping list. With so many things to buy, from household items, birthday gifts, to personal items, my expenses are starting to add up. And this is why I use Honey. Honey is a free shopping tool that scours the internet for promo codes and applies the best one it finds to your cart. It's been saving me a lot of money for my recent purchases like my hair products, which is a lot, cleaning supplies, and even my printed signage for ABG. Honey doesn't just work on desktops, it works on your iPhone too. Just activate on Safari on your phone and save on the go. Getting Honey seriously only takes a few seconds. And by getting it, you'll be doing yourself a solid and supporting the show. Get PayPal Honey for free at joinhoney.com/ABG. That's joinhoney.com/ABG.
So when we first started working at ABG, this was right before the pandemic had shut down. This was like March of 2020. And I still remember we had just finished a speaking event in the Bay, right? And then we were all in our hotel room playing telestrations. And we were like, do you have COVID? Do you have COVID? Do you have COVID? Like, are we stuck here forever? It was a very scary feeling. But it was literally, we had started doing ABG, I think like 2 or 3 weeks before the pandemic literally shut everything down. If you were to think back to that period of time, did you ever think to yourself, like, how would I have transitioned into this work from home remote working style if I was still working at my old corporate job?
Oh yeah, I definitely, I will have to say, like, I think it was so like strange or maybe really positive and like surreal that the timing worked in such a way where our plan to start, our going full time into this new career began right when the world shut down. And at the time I was also working at a consultancy, and there's this thing called being on the bench when you're not on a client. And given the state of the economy during the time of the pandemic, I heard a lot of my friends who worked at consultancies say that like projects were frozen or things were kind of like put on pause. So I could have been just getting paid a pretty fat paycheck for sitting at home, So sometimes I think about that. Obviously, it's like you can't turn back time and switch anything, but it's crazy to think in an alternate universe how that would have maybe changed my perspective on the work that I was doing.
True.
Yeah.
True.
Oof.
How about for you, Mel?
I didn't. Yeah, actually, the transition actually might have been really tough because I worked at a media company that put out YouTube videos. Yeah. And if you can't shoot videos, I have nothing to promote on social media. So I think we'd probably have to do a whole different tactic. And so it might have been a struggle. And I think for me, with my role there, I like to bounce around to different directors, like, hey, what are you working on? What are you working on? But not having them like be next to me, be like, what's going on? I have to tap everyone individually on like Slack or something. It might be more annoying, but doable. But I don't know. Like the landscape would be so different.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. I forgot that totally happened for a lot of like digital companies.
Yeah. Yeah. I think for me, it probably would have been a similar feeling to what Jana was feeling, where is it like sitting on the bench or?
Yeah. Or like not just
chilling on the bench.
Like just all work
sleeping
but
on the bench. But I would have imagined it would have been like a snow day. Which I don't know. Have you ladies had a snow day?
You don't know snow days.
Rainy days.
Oh, you had rain days where you didn't have to go to school?
Oh, no.
Wait, no, you still had to go to school. Or I still had to go to school.
Oh, my God. Sorry, I think about recess from elementary school.
What?
We had to stay home in the classroom, play Mancala.
Oh, I remember that. And you have to eat lunch in your classroom.
Okay, well, for all the East Coasters out there who remember snow days, you would wake up and there would be like a blanket of snow outside of just white, and you're like, it's today a day. And then you literally, before you brush your teeth or anything, you turn on the news, and then there's newscasters that are talking for like hours about like, oh my gosh, there's so many inches of snow. And I'm like, how long can you talk about this for? But there would be this little like scrolling text at the bottom that shows all of the school closures. And you like wait. You wait for your school to come out, and then you gotta like go pee, because in the morning you have to go pee all the time. So I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't hold this, go pee. And then you have to come back. You gotta wait another 10 minutes because your school passed. But then when you see that your school is closed, it's just like the best feeling ever. Because I think back then we didn't have email, not to like date us, but I don't think we had email back then. Yeah. So your teachers couldn't email you and say, hey, this is your today's syllabus. You have to do this. This is your homework. It was just like a free day. And then you go grab like a trash can lid, slide down a hill. It was the fucking
Mel's face is like, that's not what I would do.
I was like, sorry, California kid, born and raised, never had.
I'm just painting the visual of what you would do.
I know.
No, you would grab a trash can lid and slide down a hill.
Now we could trudge in our stupid rain boots to class because it'd still be raining. Jay, we never had that in California.
No, yeah. I always did, because I lived in New York for a little bit, and I always would imagine, I'm like, dang, what it would be like to be a kid. Because when you're an adult, so I guess sometimes in the offices would shut down, but sometimes it's like I would feel like, oh, I still have to send that email. You just have to send it from home.
Yes,
right?
I'm talking about like high school, but I felt like if with the pandemic, it would have been like a snow day,
full on shutdown.
Yeah, for a lot of adults, because I feel like that day you would have just been like, I don't know what
do
I'm
anything.
doing. Are my clients alive? Like, I don't know. But at the same time, I feel like that would have only lasted for like 2 days or 2 weeks max before some structure was put into place.
And they would have figured out a plan to.
Yeah. Like I talked to my my work bestie and she was like, oh, it's even worse, when you're online because there's no on and off, when you sign on and when you sign off, you're just constantly on. Your green bubble better be active like at 9 p.m. versus in the office, if you're physically out of sight, people are like, oh, she's checked out for the day.
Yeah.
Send them an email for tomorrow. But yeah, I heard it's actually harder during the pandemic.
Dang.
So I'm happy that we did ABG when we did.
Nice.
Except for the 2 weeks of snow days that we missed out on.
Oh, man.
What are some assumptions that you had about ABG? Jumping from a corporate job to a more creative endeavor, very different jobs. What are some assumptions that you had about the working style or how your life would have been different?
I think we talked about this before, but like I felt like when we transitioned to full time, it was a big adjustment period for the three of us because our working styles are completely different. So I think for me, I didn't expect us to have that difference, even though I knew we all worked in different industries. But it was our first time being like, oh no, I work differently. Like, oh, I sign off at a certain time and I don't. So I'm just like, I think dealing with that was kind of unexpected for me, but definitely needed. I think the second thing I would say, and this is like, maybe more transparent, but I think people assume that when you go to your passion project full time that you're gonna love everything. Like, oh my God, this is what I always wanted to do, blah, blah, blah. It is to some degree, but there are some days, and like any job, your job is gonna feel like a job. It's gonna be work. I think sometimes I feel like people assume that I'm gonna be loving every piece of it, but the reality is it's not true. Like some days are really hard. Some projects are really tough that I don't love, but it's just part of the job. And so that's just the reality that we're living.
Yeah, I think for me, I honestly thought that we would be meeting in person a lot.
Yeah.
I was like, finally, we get to hang out like full time and not just be doing like Facebook messaging during work hours. And then, of course, the world shuts down and they're like, just kidding, you can't see anyone. And I remember getting so sad, and we would sit on Zoom because we're like, well, we have to figure out like then a plan B then, or like a way to work around this. So we did that, but I think that was a big like expectation. I was like, oh, we're gonna get to hang out more because I feel like we were more efficient and things were more natural and like fast when we would work together in person, even meeting after work at like 10 p.m. And then when we couldn't do that, I was like, oh, okay, well, we're gonna have to figure this out. But for the most part, I also tried to go in with like a blank slate and not try to imagine or have assumptions or expectations because I kind of wanted to just like let it be and see what happened. But yeah, I missed you ladies in the beginning being locked in my apartment.
I actually don't remember. Did we have like a first day of work?
We did.
I think we did. We brought our lunches.
We have a video.
We brought our own lunches?
Yeah, it was at your apartment. We came and we were like, oh, it's lunchtime. We had our lunch boxes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Because I feel like we quit our jobs and
Around
then
the
went
same.
straight into ABG, right?
We did,
we
we
take a
did.
break?
No.
Did we quit on the same day? Was there
I
an
don't know.
overlap?
There was definitely on the same time.
Yeah. Because
Yeah,
Janet,
yeah.
you were end of 2019, so you had a few months.
I
where
had
you
a
we
few
were-
months.
lying on the bench. and then
We never even hit the bench.
Okay.
We literally were like, oh, let's go.
Our asses were just hanging up in the air, right? Walking over to the next job. But yeah, I actually don't remember that. So
We have a video actually from the first day.
yeah, okay. I think I also didn't have many assumptions going into the job because we had already been doing it for 2 years while working at our corporate job. So I think it was just more of what we were doing, faster paced, and just more volume of what we were already used to. The thing that Mel mentioned earlier about having different working styles, like Janet, I also kind of allow things to just happen naturally. And I think if you come from different careers and different backgrounds, naturally there's going to be a little bit of tension there in your working style. And I remember there was a point where I felt like we weren't going as hard as I was used to and bringing it up to you ladies. And it was such an uncomfortable conversation because I was like, you're my friends. Like, I don't want to bring this up. This is weird. You're not my coworkers, but you are. And I brought up, like, we got to light a fire under our asses if this is what we're doing full time. Like, this is a fraction of our paychecks that we were used to getting, right? And I remember one thing that Janet said during that time was, like, Helen, I'm so glad you brought this up because if you're feeling this way, then probably one of us is already feeling this way too. So it's necessary for you to vocalize stuff like this and not just like harbor it and let it fester inside. So when you said that, I felt really supported, and I was like, oh, okay, this is a good thing that we have, going on for us.
And that actually is really important to set the tone when we first started working together, because I think it's easy to feel like, oh, I just need to like adjust to it and just let things kind of keep flowing. But I think, and I remember you being so like nervous to talk about that. You're like, I don't want to.
I don't have anything to say, but I do.
I know, but being able to express that and to just to express, hey, there is something that I would like to change about our current situation, whatever it is, gave permission for everyone else to also respond.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, I think that's a really good lesson for anyone who's going to like work with friends or work for yourself transitioning careers. Be honest.
Yeah.
Just be honest. It might be hard to say, but people will appreciate it in the end.
And I think the fact that we have always chosen like our friendship over our, coworker situation as our priority, and we've been doing that for the past 5 years, has also been very important for the longevity of even why we're here today. So hello, ABGs and ABBs. If you have been listening in and watching us on the YouTubes, you will see that we have some hot commodities on the lower regions of our bodies. I am wearing the Hottie Hot shorts in white, and Janet is in true navy. And when I tell you that these are so, so comfortable, I mean, they feel absolutely weightless. There's nothing constricting me or us or holding us back. These shorts make us feel like we can do deep squats and run a marathon. If I were to run a marathon, which is one of my long-term goals once I'm done having babies, I am 1,000% running in these shorts.
And for me, I've done hot yoga in these, gotten super sweaty in them for longer lake runs. And what I love about them is, for one, they are the perfect high-waisted shorts. And they come in 2 different inseams. One is 2.5, which Helen is wearing, and the other is 4, which I have. And no matter the length, they both have built-in liner to give you the perfect coverage. These shorts have a hidden pocket for storage, because who doesn't love a pocket? And it's made with a sweat wicking material so that I stay comfortable when I get sweaty, because I do sweat a lot when I work out. Check out these Lululemon Hottie Hot shorts for yourself at lululemon.com.
All right, so my next question for y'all is, obviously now we can have a more public-facing job. Do you mind quickly sharing like the pros and cons?
I would say one of the biggest pros is being able to meet people who directly feel a benefit from the work that I do. I think that working in any type of like office, I mean, that's not necessarily true, but I think whatever industry I was in before, I was like designing in technological interfaces for people, right? And so it's very different to say like, hey, I helped create a thing that is easier for you to use, versus you saying, hey, listening to you tell your personal story really made me feel not alone. Like that's like night and day. So I think just that has been such a huge like happy feeling for me that I did not anticipate, and it was totally new for me. A con I would say is that it's really hard to explain what we do to some people, particularly in the older generations. I had talked about going on like multiple dates in the last couple of years, or being on like in more like serious like relationships, and having to either meet parents or have my person I was seeing explain to their parents what the girl they were seeing is doing, right? And you're like entertaining each other for potential like life partnership or marriage, and they're like, she records herself having conversations with friends, and they're like, what? Does she make money? Like, what is she doing? Blah, blah, blah. And so they would have to like legitimize with like, oh no, they've been like covered by the Today Show. Oh no, look, mom, like they're actually on Spotify, but it is like harder to, I think, to explain to still some people what this like industry in this space is like.
Yeah. Similar answer for me for the pro, which is that I think because we tell, our real, raw, authentic stories and put it out there publicly, there are people who feel a real human connection with us. And that is something that, even like if I think about an old coworker who I'd known for 7 years and worked alongside, like these strangers know more about me on a human level than my past coworker did. So that is something that I think is a huge pro, having that direct impact on people. And my con, I would say, is I think this job is hard for someone kind of like myself, who has more of a little bit of a perfectionist mentality, and it's a little difficult to let go of the level of control or the image and the perception. So that was hard for me. I think I've shared on this podcast that one of my biggest fear is public speaking. And I'm like, how the fuck did we end up here? Like it's
literally what you do full time.
Yeah, and it's like literally ever since I was a kid, like it's in my DNA. It's like it's not natural for me, you know? So it is one of those things where I've had to work on, and I can tell that with repetition, that weight and that fear is slowly starting to dissipate, but it takes time. And it's not as natural as I would love. Like I loved choir. I love being on stage. I love being part of a team. I love dancing. But like that's when all eyes are spread over you. You're part of it. But like when you're talking, everyone's eyes are on you, and it's like, holy shit, that's a lot of pressure.
Yeah, that's true.
So that is, I think, the con. But I'm working through it because I feel like what we do is important, which is why I need to work through those fears that I have holding myself back. Yeah.
Oh, the choir comparison, that's a good one because it's like eyes glazed of the whole entity versus you.
Yeah. I could be in the back.
My pro is similar to both you about like the human connection. I think it's so rewarding to like meet listeners and they feel like your friend. And I don't. It's sometimes I'm like when Boss and I met, someone, I was like, I feel like I know you, and I love that feeling of just like the conversation just goes.
Instant connection.
It is. It's instant connection thing. And when I was in Taiwan, I felt kind of like a little like nervous, but then I felt a little lonely there for some periods of the day, some of the days, but having dinner with our listeners, I was like, wow, I really have a friend anywhere I can go. With ABG, I feel like I have a friend everywhere. The other thing with the pro is, I guess in some ways, as much as they connect to our story, I feel like I love that they're entertained by our podcast. Like, I always tell this story now, but I was at Disneyland with my boyfriend and his friends, and we ran into a listener, and I was like, oh, hi, this is my boyfriend, Ray. And she goes, no, I'm not there in the story yet. I can't meet him. And I was like, what? And I realized like she's still like a new listener, and that was part of she was listening to the parts where I was dating and like on my dating woes, and here I am with my boyfriend, and she was like, I cannot meet him right now. And I was like, okay, cool. But that was really like a fun moment. I think the con is that I think I said earlier with my previous jobs, like working in social, you always have to be on. And I think now having a public facing job, I'm even more on than I was before. And to be honest, I do hit points of burnout, and it can be exhausting sometimes. And I think there are moments where there's a period of time where I was running around doing errands, and I felt so introverted. Like I didn't want to say hi to people, and I was afraid to run into someone. And I didn't want to come off like, oh, I'm not a bitch right now. It's just more like I just cannot talk right now. So having to deal with that. And another thing is like, again, being public facing, my insecurities sometimes come out wildly when I don't want it to be, because I'm constantly comparing myself, because I see myself on social media, on video. So that's something I need to tackle myself. It's like, how do you deal with your public image insecurity? And so, yeah, that's like a work in progress thing. So that's a con.
Thanks for sharing, both of you ladies, on that. I think that like what you shared, and if you listen to our like episodes in the past, it's obviously stuff that's like we are working through, and we've been working through for some time, and we share it openly because we understand that it's going to be accepted, you know, gracefully. So yeah, we're working through it.
Yeah.
This next question is for Helen. Helen, as a mom now, do you ever think about what life and your career would have been like had you stayed at the Big Four?
Oh, yes. Well, because when I was thinking about leaving, it was later on in my life. Right.
Yeah.
When I first joined the job, there were benefits. Obviously, there was the 401k, there's the healthcare, and like all of that. And I feel like that's pretty standard for anyone joining a big company. But there was always a drop down that I never touched, which was family planning. And it was a long drop down list of things that I couldn't take advantage of. So when I was leaving the firm, I was like, oh shoot, if I want to have a baby, like how am I gonna take time off? Like you get 16 weeks of paid time off, and I'm not gonna get that with ABG, you know. So all of these thoughts were going through my mind, and something that I realized was that with this job, there was always a carrot dangling in front of me, like, and I was always hungry. I was always going for that carrot. My Chinese zodiac is also a rabbit, so I'm like, I love my carrots. But like, I started going to therapy, and I was like, okay, let's practice some, like, you know, even like my intuitive eating. Like, I'm like, I'm full. You know, I don't need any more carrots, even though it's one that it was like a golden carrot in front of me. And then I had a promotion coming up too. So like the bonus and even like just a standard increase in your raise would have been pretty significant for that round. And I was just like, I just can't do it. you know, something in me told me that I had to move on. So that was one of the bigger things as a mom. I think that would have helped out. But like, we figured it out with ABG. It was hard at first because we didn't have a standard to go by. We didn't have other friends with, you know, smaller companies too that have sort of gone through it, or a plan that we were like, oh, that looks good. Like, if anything, they were taking like 3 weeks off and then going back to work. I'm like, I can't do that. And maybe a lot of our friends were also like male, you know.
I was going to say that. I think a lot of our models for people who had started their own small like businesses didn't have the issue of bearing a child.
Right.
They might have been a father and they have to do that. But yeah, it was very new territory for us to kind of figure out how to make sure she was feeling good, make sure we could, you know, function and everything. But that's a really good point about the carrot story. I think a lot of people probably feel that way, right? Like what causes you to stay is like there's always going to be another thing. There's
always going to be another promotion. There's always another raise. There's always a project that all of a sudden you're greenlit for that you've been going for at the exact, you know, right/wrong time. And it's just like you're in a constant cycle. So you gotta like take a step back and figure out what it is that you really care for, what you value, and why you're even staying at that job. So going to therapy helped a lot with all of that. But yeah, I think that would have been nice to have the benefits, but I probably wouldn't have changed my decision in hindsight.
Yeah. And that's something that we talk about openly as 3 women. And, you know, for the company, we all hope to have like kids one day or something. And we're going to figure out how to.
Yeah. Actually, even for you, like I know in my old job, they had up to $50,000 that they could cover for surrogacy, adoption, or in vitro egg fertilization. Like, is that something that because you were also sort of like in your later stages of life when you quit your corporate job?
Yeah. This was a very real conversation.
And I say later, but you're very young. But you know what I mean?
No.
Yes.
I mean, it is true. Like, I think for me personally, based on the research I did, like, for the companies I was at, they didn't really have like that perk of offering. I knew some companies do for women because it is a great incentive, right? It's a great benefit to have. So for me, I just kind of was like, okay, where are my priorities? And I'm gonna do this, right? But I had a really good friend who was going through IVF at the time and also switching jobs from a Big Four into an in-house company. And so when she was weighing her benefits package, a huge thing was like, what is their maternal plan, right? And or like maternal and like family planning, what are their benefits? So yeah, it's a big difference to make. But I think like with all things, we can figure it out. And we did. But it's a big hefty thing to leave on the table sometimes.
Yeah, I think that's the thing too. If you jump into a creative project or you're fearful of leaving your job, you're always going to think about the worst case scenario. And usually it's not going to be the worst case scenario that plays out. Like you're smart enough, you're going to figure it out. What are some perks that you wish for ABG to offer in the future? Some benefits that we keep talking about since we talk about corporate benefits so much.
I'll just say one, or just say 2. I would love to offer like an office space to our team. I feel like our girls would love to just come into one space, interact with each other, and be productive there. And the last thing I would love down the line to maybe even offer some of these girls full-time offers because everyone's part-time right now.
True. Yeah. How about for you, Jay?
That would be amazing. Yeah, office space is a big one. We often talk about just providing, like when we say community, there's like we provide a space online for all of you. When we do brunch, we provide a temporary space. Having like a physical space that is like an ABG home would be amazing. I think for me, the fact that we are all women run is like really important. And the more that we kind of like talk about our like friends and examples that are mostly male, it would be awesome if we could offer more benefits around like family planning. I don't know that we could like pay for like egg freezing, but maybe it's like some I don't know, like relationship with an office or a clinic, and then maybe for family plan, I don't know, just something around that type of benefit I think would be a great example.
I like that a lot. For me, I would just say similar, like office space, and also more in the near term, like a studio space. We bring, for those of you who don't know, we bring all of this stuff in here every time we shoot. The couches, the tree, very fake tree, the logo, lighting, and everything. So it's a lot. And hopefully in the near future, we can get a studio space.
Putting it out there in the universe.
Yeah. Manifesting.
Yeah.
Well, with that, this wraps up today's episode. Thank you so much for tuning in as we kind of recount our corporate experience. Like, there's actually a lot of things we miss and things we don't miss, but it was kind of nice to kind of walk down memory lane. I would love to hear what you guys love about your corporate life and what you don't love. So please write in our comments of this YouTube video. We want to read your experience. So let us know. We also have a very fruitful Discord community.
Fruitful.
Yeah, a lot of women there that are amazing. That and
Yeah.
men also work 9 to 5, but also pursuing their passion projects there. So if you're looking for a new group of friends, please check out our Discord. It's in our link in bio on our Instagram. But yeah, and with that, we will catch you on the next episode. Bye.
Bye.